Chosen one, before I say anything else, I want you to notice something, just for a moment. Notice the weight you walked into this moment carrying, the weight that sits across your shoulders like an old coat you forgot you were wearing. The kind that doesn't fully lift even when you sleep, even when things are going well, even in the quiet moments that are supposed to feel like rest. You have been carrying that weight for a long time. And somewhere in the carrying, it started to feel normal, like armor, like the thing that was holding you together. You have been in a battle, a real one, not a metaphor. A genuine, grinding, relentless battle in your finances, in your relationships, in your own mind, in the long silent seasons where you prayed and waited and got very little back. And through all of it you kept going, you kept showing up, you refused to break when breaking would have been the easier thing to do. I need you to hear what I'm about to say, because I believe something greater than chance brought you to this moment. The battle is over. Not because you gave up, not because you walked away, because you won. And I know part of you doesn't fully believe that yet. Part of you is still scanning the horizon, still braced, still waiting for the next thing to go wrong. That is what a long season of warfare does. It makes peace feel dangerous and rest feel like something you haven't earned. But here is the question this entire message is built around. Can you actually let yourself receive what you fought for? Because learning how to do that, learning how to rest after a real battle, may be the hardest and most important thing you have ever been called to do. And that is exactly what we are going to talk about today. Before we go any further, if you are in a quiet shift right now, if you can feel something changing but cannot quite name it, I want to ask you to stay with this all the way through. Because by the time we reach the end of this message, you are going to understand something specific, what the battle actually built inside you, what this recovery season is genuinely asking of you, and why the thing that looks like stillness from the outside is one of the most powerful assignments a chosen one can receive. Stay with me. What I want to share matters. Now let me begin with something that almost no one talks about after a long season of struggle. When a battle truly ends, when the thing you have been fighting actually turns, your nervous system does not get the memo right away. The body does not receive a signal that says the danger has passed. It keeps running the same program it has been running for months or even years. It keeps scanning, it keeps bracing, it keeps producing the same alertness that kept you safe during the hard season. And so you can win and not feel like you have won. You can cross a threshold and still feel like you are standing in the middle of the storm. This is not weakness. This is not a spiritual failure. This is what warfare does to a person. And the first thing I want to do today is help you see the signs that the battle has already shifted. Because they are there, even if the part of you that is still in survival mode has been filtering them out. The first sign is a peace that keeps arriving uninvited. Not the peace of everything being fixed. Not the peace of perfect circumstances. Just a quiet settling in moments you cannot fully explain, a stillness that visits you and then retreats, and then visits again, a little longer each time. If that has been happening, it is not random. The second sign is that old triggers have been losing their power. Things that used to destabilize you completely, a certain tone in someone's voice, a specific silence between people, a particular number in your bank account, are passing through you differently now. Not that they don't still sting, but they are not taking you all the way down the way they once did. Something in you has become more solid. The third sign is moments of clarity returning. After a long season of fog, of not knowing which direction to move, of feeling like your discernment was buried under exhaustion, you have been having flashes, moments of sharp knowing, moments where the path forward is briefly, unexpectedly clear. Those are not accidents. The fourth sign is that certain things are resolving without you forcing them. Situations you had given up on, relationships that had gone cold, doors that had been stuck, some of them have been quietly, undramatically beginning to move. Not because you pushed harder, because the season turned. The fifth sign is a quietness settling inside you, where there used to be constant internal noise. The running commentary of anxiety, the loop of worst-case thinking, the relentless inner voice narrating everything that could still go wrong, it is still there, but it is softer, less insistent. Like a radio station you can now choose not to tune into. The sixth sign is a sense of having crossed something, even if you cannot name what or exactly when, even if you cannot point to a single dramatic moment of transition. You know, somewhere below the thinking mind, that you are on the other side of something real. And the seventh sign, perhaps the most important one, is this: you are here, you are still open, you are still reaching for understanding. Because the ones who are truly defeated do not keep showing up. The ones who have genuinely lost do not keep looking for answers. Your presence in this moment is evidence. You are still in motion, which means something in you knows that what was promised has not been cancelled. The battle has shifted. The evidence is everywhere. You just needed someone to help you read it. Here is what I want you to understand about why that is so hard to see. Your nervous system has been operating in what scientists call a beta-dominant state, the frequency of alertness, urgency, and survival. When you run in that frequency long enough, it becomes your baseline. The absence of danger starts to feel like danger. The arrival of peace starts to feel like a trick. Think of it this way. Your brain has been sending smoke signals for a fire that has already been extinguished. The signals are real, but the fire is gone. And part of the work of this recovery season is teaching your nervous system a new story, the story that it is safe, now, to breathe. There is an image I want to give you that I will come back to more than once in this message. An eagle in flight does not gain altitude by flapping harder. It gains altitude by finding the thermal, the invisible column of warm air rising from the earth and opening its wings to let the current carry it higher than its own effort ever could. During the battle, you had to flap. You had to generate force with every wing beat because nothing external was lifting you. But the wind has changed. There is a thermal beneath you now. And the discipline this season is asking of you, the specific, demanding, deeply counterintuitive discipline, is to stop flapping, to open your wings, to trust what is already rising. Because soaring looks like stillness from the outside, but it covers more ground than anything you could have achieved by force alone. Now I want to go deeper, because recognizing that the battle has turned is only the beginning. There is a second truth that very few people talk about. Winning and receiving are two completely different acts, and most chosen ones have learned, sometimes brilliantly, how to fight. What they have not learned, because no one ever taught them and because the season never required it, is how to receive. Let me tell you what the battle built in you, because this deserves to be named. It built endurance that cannot be faked, the kind that only comes from having been pushed past what you thought your limit was and discovering that your limit was further than you knew. You cannot manufacture that. You cannot shortcut your way to it. You have it now, and it will carry weight in everything you do going forward in ways that will be quietly, consistently extraordinary. It built discernment, the ability to read rooms, to read people, to read situations with a precision that those who have never been tested simply do not have. You know what desperation feels like in a conversation. You know what manipulation looks like dressed as care. You know the difference between genuine peace and the numbness that comes from giving up. That knowing is not small. It is rare. And it belongs to you. It built a depth of empathy that no classroom could have given you. Because you have been in the low places. You have been in the waiting rooms and the wilderness places and the spaces where the promised thing seemed impossibly far. And that means when someone else finds themselves in that same terrain, and they will, you will know how to sit with them in a way that carries actual weight, not theory, not performance. Real presence. It built spiritual authority, not arrogance, not the kind that announces itself, the quiet, grounded kind that has been tested and has not broken. The kind that makes a room settle when you enter it, that makes truth land differently when it comes through you, and it built an unshakable foundation. You now know, not because someone told you, but because you lived it, that you can handle what comes. You proved it. Every day that you kept going when you could have stopped is evidence of something in you that will not be defeated. That is not nothing, that is everything. None of that disappears now that the battle has eased. All of it remains, all of it belongs to you. The battle did not just put you through something, it formed you into someone specific, someone capable of carrying what comes next. But first, and this is the part that no one warns you about, you have to actually receive what you fought for. There is a passage written by a warrior who knew what it meant to fight for years before the promised thing arrived, and it begins with these words: "He makes me lie down in green pastures, he leads me beside still waters." That was not written by someone who had never known battle. It was written by someone who had known more of it than most, and it is not describing what happens before the hard season, it is describing what becomes available after it. The green pastures and the still waters are not the starting point of the journey. They are the offering that comes on the other side. They are the recovery. And they are also a gift that must be actively received. You can stand at the edge of still water and never drink from it. You can lie down in green pastures and spend the whole time watching the horizon for the next threat. So let me ask you something directly. When peace arrives, do you let it in, or do you immediately scan it for what is wrong with it? When something goes well, do you receive it, or do you brace for when it gets taken away? When someone offers you help, do you let them, or do you deflect and insist you're fine when you are not? This is the work of the recovery season, and it is not passive. It is one of the most demanding things a chosen one will ever be asked to do, because it requires releasing the posture that kept you alive through everything, the posture of control, the posture of constant readiness, the posture of, if I let myself believe this is real and it isn't, it will destroy me. There is a moment in the ancient stories that very few people slow down long enough to sit with. One of the great prophets, one who had just demonstrated spiritual power that defied every natural law, ran into the wilderness and collapsed under a tree and asked to die. He was not weak, he was spent. He had given everything, and there was nothing left. And the response he received was not correction, not rebuke, not a sermon on endurance. The response was an angel, touching his shoulder, setting food and water beside him. "Arise and eat." That was the first word, not push through, not stand back up and try again. Arise and eat. Because the journey ahead is too great for you to make on depleted reserves. And then he rested, and was fed again. And only after the rest and the nourishment, only then was he given the next instruction. God's first response to burnout was not correction, it was care. And I want you to hear that today in a way you may never have fully heard it before. Now, I want to share something with you that I have found genuinely useful in this specific part of the journey, and I want to share it the way I would share anything that has helped me honestly and without pressure. One of the practical realities of a long battle season is what it does to the frequency your brain operates in. Neuroscientists have spent years studying what happens to the brain under sustained stress. And what research coming out of institutions like MIT and Stanford has confirmed is that prolonged survival mode thinking locks the brain into a specific frequency, one that is fundamentally incompatible with the clarity, creativity, and intuition that the recovery season requires. The brain, in other words, needs help returning to its natural state. The frequency it was designed to inhabit. The one that was fully active in you as a child before the weight, before the armor, before the long season of fighting. Scientists call it the gamma state. And what the research has found is that it is not gone, it is dormant, and it can be reawakened. A neuroscientist named Dr. Robert Lake With over 30 years of research into brain entrainment, the science of using specific sound frequencies to guide the brain into different states, spent years working on exactly this problem. How do you help a brain that has been locked in survival frequency return to the gamma state it was formed to inhabit? Drawing on research from some of the most respected institutions in the world, including Princeton, Harvard, and Berkeley, what he developed is a 7-minute audio track. You put on headphones, you close your eyes, and you listen. That is all. No meditation practice required, no years of discipline, no equipment worth thousands of dollars, just 7 minutes. And the technology embedded in that audio does what decades of traditional practice attempt to do it, invites the brain, gently and measurably, back toward its natural frequency. Accessing this kind of support through clinical settings, through biofeedback therapy, for instance, typically costs around $300 per session. Home equipment versions can run close to $7,000. What Dr. Lake built is available for $49 as a digital audio file delivered directly to your email. But for people who find this message through the link I have left in the description and in the pinned comment below, it is available for $39. With 4 additional resources included: a track designed to support younger minds in the same household, the book that inspired The Secret before the secret existed, a guided visualization for 4 areas of your life, and a printable infographic of the 5 habits most essential to building the future you are stepping into. And it is backed by a full money-back guarantee with no questions asked, regardless of how many times you have used it before requesting the refund. This is not a miracle. It is a tool, one of several things that can support what your nervous system is already trying to do in this season. I'm sharing it because it has been genuinely useful, not because it is the only answer, and not because you need it to receive what this message is offering. If it resonates with you, the link is in the description and in the pinned comment below. If it doesn't, the message continues, and everything I have left to share is still fully available to you. One thing before we move on. There are imitation products circulating that use the same name audio files, with no actual brain entrainment technology embedded in them, just ordinary sound with a label attached. They will not do what the original does. The only source I can point you to with confidence is the link in the description and the pinned comment below this message. Not search results, not any other platform. The link I have placed below. That is the only place where you will receive the original technology, the bonuses, and the guarantee intact. Whether or not that tool is something you choose to explore, the principle it is built on matters for every chosen one in a recovery season. Your brain has been running at a frequency that was necessary for survival. It does not know how to come down from that on its own. It needs help. It needs quiet and nourishment, and the kind of intentional recovery that the next part of this message is going to help you understand and build. So let us keep going. There is something I need to say right at the beginning of this, and it may be the most counterintuitive truth in this entire message. Rest is not what happens while you wait for the next assignment. Rest is the assignment, not a placeholder, not a waiting room, not the pause between the real chapters of your life. It is a chapter, a full, meaningful, productive chapter, and it demands a different kind of courage than anything the battle ever required. Because fighting is something most of us understand. We have frameworks for it. We have role models for it. Every story we have ever been told celebrates the one who pushed through, the one who kept going when everyone else had already stopped, the one who stood when there was nothing left to stand on. And those stories are true, and your chapter of that story is real. But what almost no one tells you is what comes after that, what the next act requires, how completely different a skill set it demands. What comes after the warrior's trial is not inactivity, it is restoration. And restoration is not something that happens to you while you sit passively still. It is something you actively participate in with just as much intention as you brought to the battle. just pointing in a completely different direction. Let me tell you what real recovery looks like for a chosen one. Because if you do not know what it actually looks like, you will mistake it for things that only resemble rest on the surface, but are actually just different forms of the battle continuing. Numbing is not recovery. Scrolling for hours without purpose, consuming content that disconnects you from yourself, overeating or oversleeping, not because your body needs it, but because your mind cannot tolerate the quiet. Those are not rest. They are the battle continuing in a new arena. The opponent has just changed shape. Instead of fighting external circumstances, you are now fighting the feeling of your own presence. And that is a battle you were never meant to be in. Avoidance is not recovery. Performing a gratitude that sits on top of unprocessed pain, pretending the hard things did not happen, refusing to acknowledge what was genuinely lost in the season you just came through, none of that is healing. It is a different kind of armor. And armor cannot be worn into the next chapter without cost. Real recovery, the kind that actually prepares you for what comes next, looks like this. It looks like slowing down enough to feel what you were not allowed to feel during the battle. Because in the middle of a fight, you do not have the luxury of grief. You do not have the space to sit with the weight of what was taken, or what changed, or what you had to release in order to keep moving. You process what you can, quickly, partially, and then you keep going because the alternative is to stop. But the processing that was not finished during the battle does not disappear. It waits. And the recovery season is when it finally becomes safe to complete it, not to spiral in it, not to build a home inside it, but to let it move through you in the way it needed to and could not. It looks like receiving care from the people around you, from your own body, from whatever you understand as the source of all things, without immediately deflecting it. Without the reflexive "no, I'm fine," without the habitual minimizing, without the old instinct that says receiving makes you weak or creates a debt you cannot repay. You have spent a long season giving out. You have poured and held and carried. The recovery season is when you practice the other direction. And if that feels unfamiliar, if receiving feels almost physically uncomfortable, that is exactly the thing to notice. Because the inability to receive is not a virtue, it is a wound. And it is one that this season is offering to heal. It looks like creating silence that is full, not empty. And I want to draw a distinction here that matters deeply. There is a silence that comes from shutting down, from numbing, from going flat, from using everything up and having nothing left to notice. And then there is a completely different kind of silence. The silence of a winter field. On the surface, those two silences look identical. Nothing is visibly moving in either one. But underground, in the dark and the cold and the quiet of the winter field, everything is growing. The seed does not announce itself. The root system does not ask for recognition while it expands. The silence of a winter field is not the silence of a grave. It is the silence of something becoming. And the chosen one, who learns to inhabit that kind of silence, who learns to be still without being absent, who learns to receive without grasping, is being prepared underground for something that will emerge in the next season with a force that the winter itself could not have predicted. I want to come back to the eagle one more time, because I think there is something more in that image than I said before. The eagle riding a thermal is not doing nothing. It is doing something extremely precise. Small movements of the wingtip, constant micro-calibrations of the angle of the wing, paying very close attention to the subtlest shifts in the air beneath it. What looks like effortless stillness from the ground is actually a state of alert, continuous, intentional responsiveness. The eagle is not asleep. It is not checked out. It is completely present to what is happening beneath it, to the invisible current that is doing the lifting, and it is cooperating with it in small, deliberate, moment-by-moment ways. That is what recovery asks of you, not unconsciousness, not collapse. Intentional, alert cooperation with what is already lifting you. an attention to the quiet signals that are now available, signals that were completely drowned out by the noise of the battle, an openness to being carried that is not passivity, but is the most refined kind of active engagement you have ever practiced. Because what is being built in this quiet season, in this space between the battle and what comes next, is not just your nervous system recovering. Something much larger is happening, and I want to name it now, directly, because you deserve to hear it clearly. I want to talk to you about who you are now. Not who you were before the battle began, not who you will be when the next chapter fully opens, who you are right now, in this moment. Because that person is not who they were at the start of the season. The battle changed you, not just on the surface, not just in what you have experienced or what you now know. It changed you at the root. It formed you into someone specific. And I do not think you have fully seen that person yet. I think most of you are still looking through the lens of who you used to be, measuring yourself against that, and finding yourself wanting in the comparison. What I want to do right now is offer you a different lens. You are a spiritual warrior, and I want to be careful about what that means, because it is not a title that belongs to the battle. It is a quality that was forged in it. The spiritual warrior is not someone who is always fighting. The spiritual warrior is someone who has learned through real testing, not theory or intention, through the actual fire, to hold ground under pressure without collapsing into either attack or retreat. That quality does not leave when the battle ends. It becomes the bedrock of everything you build next. When difficulty arrives in the next chapter, and some version of difficulty always will, you will meet it differently than you have ever met anything before. Because you have been trained in a school that most people never attend, and the training has done its work. You are a wounded healer. Every scar from this season, every place where you broke and had to be rebuilt, every loss that reshaped you, every prayer that felt like it went unanswered, until it was suddenly and irrevocably answered, all of it is now medicine. Not because suffering is noble, not because pain is something to be romanticized or celebrated, but because someone behind you on this path is in the exact place you just came through, and they are desperate, and the map that they need, the map through that specific terrain, only you can draw it. Not because you are special in some general abstract way, but because you have been in exactly that place, and there is a kind of help that can only come from someone who has. The wounded healer does not help from a place of having arrived and looking back. They help from a place of having survived and reaching back. And that help carries a weight that no expertise can replicate. You are a cycle breaker. What was broken in your family line, in your relational history, in the inherited patterns that were running your life before you understood what they were, those things do not rebuild themselves. When a generational cycle breaks, it breaks at the point where someone was willing to absorb the full force of it without passing it forward. You may have done that without knowing you were doing it. You may have felt the weight of something old and unnamed pressing down on you through entire seasons without understanding its origin or its name. This is part of why it was so heavy. You were not just carrying your own weight, you were ending something that had traveled through generations to reach you, and the ending was real. The cycle broke with you. The people who come after you, your children, your community, the ones who will be shaped by your life in ways you may never fully witness. They will walk in a freedom that you purchased at a cost you may never be fully able to measure. You may never see the complete evidence of it. But it is real. You are a pioneer. You went first into territory that did not have a road. You made decisions that no one around you had the context to support. You held a vision of something that you could not yet prove in the face of people who looked at the evidence of your life and concluded it was not there. That is not stubbornness. That is not delusion. That is pioneering. And the trail you cut, even when you were cutting it alone, even when you did not know you were making a path at all, is already being walked by others. The pioneer does not always know the shape of what they are building. They just keep moving forward into the unknown, while trusting that the movement itself is part of the purpose. And you are a builder. This is the identity I want to close on, because it is the one that belongs most fully to the season that is opening in front of you. The battle is behind you. What begins now is construction. And everything the battle formed in you, the endurance, the discernment, the depth, the authority, the unshakable foundation, all of it has been preparation for this phase. Builders do not rush. Builders do not create from desperation or urgency or the need to prove something. Builders create from capacity, from abundance, from deep reserves that can only be filled in a season of genuine recovery. And the work you do in this quiet season, the rest, the receiving, the restoration, the careful tending of what the battle nearly depleted, that is what fills those reserves. That is what determines the weight and the quality of what you build when the building season fully opens. Now let me tell you something about the transition between those two identities, from warrior to builder, that I believe is the most important thing in this entire message. Joseph sat in a prison for years, after having been betrayed by his own brothers and sold as property and lied about by people he had served faithfully. And then, without ceremony, without a gradual ramp-up, without visible preparation, he was standing in front of Pharaoh, not as a prisoner trying to make his case, as the one with the interpretation, as the one with the answer, as the one who, in a single conversation, was elevated from the lowest possible position in that society to the second highest authority in the known world. And the reason that elevation was sustainable, the reason he did not collapse under its weight, did not become corrupted by its power, did not lose himself inside, it is because of what had been built in the hidden years. The pit and the prison did not just happen to him. They formed him into someone who could stand in a palace without being changed by it, who could carry extraordinary influence without losing his integrity under it, who could lead with both precision and mercy at the same time, because he had learned what it meant to need both. The wilderness years were not a detour from his destiny. They were the making of the person who could inhabit it without being destroyed by it. You are not in the prison anymore. You are at the threshold. And the question the threshold is asking is not whether you are ready to fight again. The question is whether you are ready to receive, whether you can step into what has been prepared for you with your hands open instead of your fists clenched, whether you can trust not intellectually, not as a thought experiment, but in the quiet of your own body and your own spirit, that what is yours will find you, not because you forced it, because you became someone who can carry it. The warrior identity asked you to push. The builder identity, the inheritor identity, the one who stands at the threshold of what has been promised, that identity asks something different. It asks you to receive, and you are ready. You have been ready for this longer than you know. Now, I want to give you something practical to carry into the rest of this day and the week ahead. Because everything we have talked about needs to be practiced, not just understood. The first practice is an energy audit. Simple, not time-consuming. At the end of each day, just before you rest, ask yourself two honest questions. What drained me today? What left me feeling emptier than when I started? And what actually restored me? What gave something back? Do not analyze the answers or judge them. Just notice. Because the chosen one in a recovery season is learning a skill they may never have needed before, the skill of telling the difference between sacred engagement and performative striving, between what this season is genuinely calling you into and what the warrior in you is generating, because it cannot tolerate stillness. Not everything that keeps you busy is keeping you alive, and not everything that looks like rest is actually restoring you. The audit, practiced consistently, is how you learn the specific shape of your own recovery, what it needs, what it is releasing, what it is protecting. Let the noticing itself be enough for now. The second practice is an identity declaration. And you can do this one right now, right where you are, with no particular physical effort required. Just let the words move through your mind and notice what they feel like when they land. Say this silently or aloud, however feels right. I am no longer waiting to be seen. I am already known. I am no longer fighting to deserve this. I already belong here. I am no longer striving to prove what I carry. What I carry has already been proven. Let those words sit for a moment without immediately moving away from them, because the language you use to address yourself, the story you tell about who you are in the private space of your own thoughts, when no one else is listening, that language becomes the frequency you carry through every interaction, every decision, every moment of the days ahead. You have been speaking to yourself in the language of the battle for a long time. It is time deliberately, intentionally, as an act of faith, to begin speaking to yourself in the language of the one who has already crossed through. The third practice is treating your own care as a sacred obligation, not a luxury. Not something you earn access to after everything else is done, a responsibility held with the same seriousness as any other sacred commitment. This season is asking you to honor your sleep as holy ground, to take nourishment seriously, not as fuel for productivity, but as an act of genuine respect for the life you are carrying inside your own body. To protect the silence, you need the specific, particular silence that allows what is underground to keep growing undisturbed. To receive care without guilt, without deflection, without the old reflex that says you should be further along by now and do not deserve to rest until you are. Not because comfort is the goal, but because capacity is. A depleted chosen. One cannot carry the weight of the assignment that is coming. And the assignment is coming. What you build in this recovery season, how faithfully you receive what is being offered to you in it, will determine the quality of everything you are able to give when the next season opens. Take a breath right now, right where you are. Let your shoulders drop just slightly. You do not need to generate anything in this moment. You do not need to figure anything out, or fix anything, or push through anything. The thermal is there, beneath you, already rising. You do not have to earn it. You just have to stop producing force long enough to feel it. We have covered a lot of ground in this message, and I want to close by pulling all of it into a single picture, because I think you deserve to see it whole. You entered a battle, a real one, with real weight and real cost. You did not give up when giving up would have been the rational choice. You did not put down what you were carrying when everything around you suggested that you should. You kept showing up in the dark and in the silence and in the seasons when the promised thing seemed impossibly far. And through all of that, in ways you could not have planned and cannot fully measure, you were being formed into someone with endurance that cannot be faked, with discernment that cannot be taught in a classroom, with a foundation that cannot be shaken by what once would have leveled you, with scars that are medicine for people who are still in the places you have already come through. The battle did exactly what it was supposed to do, and you did exactly what you were supposed to do in it. And now you are here, on this side of it, in this strange and sacred and unrepeatable space between the fight and the fullness. And the invitation of this space, the specific, irreplaceable invitation that only this season carries, is to receive, to soften the hands that have been clenched for so long, to allow what was promised to actually reach you, to settle in, to become yours in the deep way that lasting things do. So, I want to speak something over you before you go, not as a performance, as something I genuinely believe belongs to this moment. You have been faithful with what was hard. You will be trusted with what is good. The season of fighting is behind you. The season of receiving is open in front of you. And everything that was prepared for you before you understood it was being prepared, everything arranged in the hidden years, in the formation years, in the years that looked from the outside like nothing significant was happening. All of it is beginning to move toward you now. Not because you finally got everything right, but because you stayed. You stayed when staying was unreasonable. You stayed when it cost you things you loved. You stayed when the only reason left to stay was the part of you that knew beneath all the doubt and the exhaustion and the confusion that you were still inside the right story. You are still inside the right story. It has not ended. It has turned. And what comes next will ask of you something completely different from what came before. It will ask you to open your hands, to let the current carry you, to stop proving and start receiving, to stop fighting for what is already yours and start inhabiting it. Chosen one, the battle is behind you, the harvest is ahead of you. And between those two things, there is this sacred and necessary season called rest. Enter it without apology. Enter it with both hands open. Let your shoulders drop. Let the thermal rise beneath you. Open your wings. What is yours will find you here.